Good evening, everyone. I almost didn't do this tonight because I'm kind of pooped, but I decided that I would get on and read some poems. I'll let a few people tune in first. Hopefully, we'll get some peeps tuning in. But I don't know, these are obviously unsettling times, and since many of us have a lot of free time, I think it's sometimes good to use that free time in order to do something creative. And I figured I would just share a couple of my favorite poems written by other artists, and then maybe share a couple of my own pieces too. So it might be fun. We'll see what happens. I have a beverage handy, so if you have a beverage handy, feel free to partake. Um, So, the first poem that I'm going to read to you this evening is one of my favorite pieces by the poet Fleda Brown, and it's a poem that I often have my students read. It just really resonates with me because during these unsettling times, we have moments where we get frustrated over the lack of control that we have over things. So, this poem to me kind of talks about that lack of control. So I miss you too, Lace. Hi, Debbie. It's good to see you. Dad's tuning in too. Hey, Dad, what's up? All right. So this poem is titled Chicory, which is ironically my favorite summer flower. If you've never seen what a chicory flower looks like, look it up. It's very beautiful. Anyway, Chicory by Fleda Brown. I worry about the chicory, that tinge of pink in the blue, its sunset delicacy even with its tough stalk. Those ragged, blunt petal tips, like my high school pep club skirt, pleats sharp as knives, but someone could easily get under it. The road here is crooked. Cars fly by at 40 or 50. I worry about how few walkers there are, how alone nature is out there, sprouting and budding and dying. Can the utterly unnoticed survive? What about the farthest reaches of the universe, the other solar systems? There's a lot that doesn't seem to need us, but the negative space around the flower is what shapes the flower, so the neglect of such a powerful mind as ours must collapse its bloom at least a little. So much reciprocity necessary to exist. We actually exchange DNA with those we catch diseases from. The germs travel to our lymph nodes, carrying a bit of our infector. We become our enemies. The quality of our existence is that delicate, which is why I ran from room to room, comforting my mother, stacking up my father's mess, wiping up poor brother's drool. No, that's not right. I was only holding them all in my mind to keep them from flying apart. How tired I was, my little body a strung bow. How small I'd keep things, little flowers by the roadside if I could. I would think of them day and night. So when I first read this poem, I kind of had like this mind-blowing moment because we all have moments, at least many people have moments where we just kind of grasp the vastness of the universe and the world around us and think about, how us being the dominant species in the world, we think that we have control over all of that stuff. But do we really? Like, does nature really need us to control it in order for it to continue to function? Which the truth is no. And I think that that's the point that Fleda Brown was trying to make. So I don't know, I just wanted to share that with you. I really find it to be a neat poem, and when I assign it for my classes, my students seem to really like it too. So we love good conversation about existential crises. So speaking of existential crises, um, story of my life, I wrote a poem a few days ago, kind of reflecting on the current pandemic that we're experiencing. And I decided that I would read it live. I've never performed it live before, so hopefully I don't completely mess it up. If I do, just laugh. Like, I'll probably laugh. Um, but I don't know, like in this poem, I tried capturing like the restlessness that we often feel when we're in this type of situation, being in quarantine, so on and so forth. Hi, Mary. Thank you for your comment. I really appreciate it. It's good to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. Anyway, so this poem is called The World Still Spins. We hide behind our battened hatches, ready for walls to tumble inside ourselves, while we're painfully aware that the world still spins around us. We loom behind our windows and watch the days that pass on the outside until they shrink into portholes too bright for our eyes. We tire as the sun droops westward, worry of the hoards we keep, there's never enough, and fear the shadow titans that stretch across the floor. We see ourselves insects trapped in amber as dusk sees through us in overexposed sunlight. And the robin sits high on the line, still singing, "Don't worry, you're not going to die." So, as you can imagine with this poem, like I was reacting to kind of like the state of hysteria that a lot of people are experiencing. And don't get me wrong, like I've kind of experienced it myself. But it's like when we experience the hysteria firsthand and then we start coming down from it and grasping things are as they are, I think that that obnoxious brightness of that hysteria lessens a little bit for us to see well enough, what we need to do, how we can sustain ourselves, so on and so forth. So I was trying to capture that in that poem. I probably will go back and tweak it up a little bit and see what else I can do. Hell, another poem might come out of it too. That's kind of the lovely thing about poems. Um, so I see a few people are watching. It's good to see you all. Let me know how you're doing in the comments. I would very much love to see how you're doing. During these times, I think it's especially important for us to kind of do like mental health checks on each other. So let's maybe try to do this during this time too. Let's see here. To do. What else should I read? Um, I like normally I write super gay poems because that's kind of my thing. I love you too, Megan. However, I'm feeling kind of nature poemy tonight. Um, the funny thing about sheltering in place is that I've become very hyper aware of everything happening outside. So, like, I will notice like very small details and then tell myself, Donnie, like, you shouldn't have to be sheltered in place to notice these really cool details about nature, right? So, the next poem is kind of me honing in on that as well. This poem is called Catching Rain. And like for those of you who know me very well, you know that rainy weather is quite possibly my favorite weather ever. And I wanted to just write a poem about that. So here we go, Catching Rain. Wisps rise from pond water like cloud fingers that stretch into waves goodbye too slow for most to see. Heavy raindrops leave footprints in the driveway, rinse away summer's long dusty gray, only to reveal the periwinkle in September's fresh load of gravel. The wind chime on the deck rings dull, flat, a whisper within a deluge, weighed by the fear of something new. The rain-catcher dangles heavy on the eave, swaddled in a backdrop of cascades, overflowing, because not every tiny cup is made for drinking. Now, part of what inspired that poem, I'm trying to remember where I was. I was at someone's house and I saw that they had like a rain catcher, and this rain catcher was like these tiny itty bitty like teacups. Like they look like little teacups. And I'm like, that's kind of ironic. Like, why would somebody have a rain catcher that's these tiny little teacups that aren't really meant to hold anything? The water is just meant to cascade down the teacups. So I thought it was kind of cool. And it just makes me think about like the odd things that fascinate people. And believe me, I'm an odd duck, so a lot of very odd things like really capture my attention, that being one of them. Let's see. Ari's tuning in. It's good to see you. Jared is doing Mom is here. Hi, Mom. I miss you too, Megan. Oh, and my dear friend Crystal is here too. It's so good to see all of you. Yay. I'm just happy that there are people tuning in because it is a relatively late. I was planning on doing this much earlier in the evening, but I was like, why not read some poems later and have a beverage while doing it? Let's see, what else? What's next? So I've read 3 so far. I'm gonna do 2 more poems because I'm not gonna be doing this like forever. I just want to tune in for a few minutes here. The next poem is one that I wrote called Convection, and I actually need to find it very quickly. Let's see. There it is. This one, much to my surprise, actually just got selected for publication in a journal, and that's coming out at the beginning of April, so pom-poms out for that. Like, I've been submitting my stuff for quite a while lately, and finally something got selected, which is nice. Mary asks what my beverage is. It is truly kind of lemonade hard seltzer. It's very delicious. Not too strong, not too weak, just in the middle for me, the way I like it. Alright, so this poem is called Convection. It's kind of depressing, so just brace yourself. So, here we go, Convection. I sink into worn upholstery after today's fall, with each effect on tomorrow measured in calculated stints of self-deprecation and inner pressure valve. Walls of trees blur past as I travel the pavement river toward a home I know is ahead, somewhere, while a plume rises in my chest like an unyielding spelunker scaling my ribcage. I won't let him out. All it takes is something someone said 3 years ago to stir the inner Vesuvius, but it's forced dormant because that's what's expected. Long commutes are unpaid therapy sessions, and sometimes those are the ones easiest to afford. So, the reason why I wrote that one is because it was probably, I think I wrote this poem last fall. A friend commented and was like, Donnie, you really are self-deprecating sometimes. And the truth is, I'm self-deprecating because 1, depression, and 2, I find that it makes people more comfortable when I'm a little bit self-deprecating because it lessens the intensity of the social atmosphere. So it's kind of become, self-deprecation has become almost like breathing, I guess. And the more I've become aware of it in myself, the more I start seeing it in other people too. And I notice that a lot of people are very much self-deprecating. So I guess that poem is kind of my way of being like, let's resist self-deprecation, especially when it's done, overdone, I guess I should say. So, before I read a couple more poems, I'm gonna probably do a couple more. Why not? Um, I just want to do a shameless plug because I am doing a series on YouTube called Pandemic Reflections. So basically, it's just me casually doing video blogs on my experiences through this whole coronavirus pandemic. If you're interested in following that or following my YouTube in general, I always appreciate the support. You just need a Gmail account to just go and subscribe. So if you were bored and you need something to watch or listen to and you want to listen to me rant about things, well, I mean, feel free. So I'm going to take a look here through a few more poems to see what other one or what other ones I might want to read. As I'm finishing up my first collection, I'm quickly realizing that I've become very obsessed with the environment, like climate change, so on and so forth. So I've been doing a lot of poems about that. And the poem that I was looking at, this one actually also got selected for publication, and it's going to be published in another issue of this magazine. It's going to be out in June, I think, if memory serves me correctly. Jared, you crack me up. But I have these weird existential moments where I think about how big the world is and just how many people are here and how the sheer number of people, I don't know, just impact the world and how people have impacted the world throughout history. So I hope this poem makes sense. Lithosphere. And for those of you who do not know, lithosphere is a layer of, it's like a layer of Earth's crust. So, all right, here we go. Sorry, I was reading comments. Lithosphere. An eggshell somehow holds the weight of 7 billion people as they carry on, unconscious of cracks that spread like veins. Abyssal arteries have lost their magnetic heft, and half-coagulated rifts slow production, weary of repairing this hell. Latitude lines define topographic pressure points: Chernobyl, Bikini Atoll, Fukushima, 3 Mile. Plastic flotillas are soulless warships on an ocean swell, where sealed bottles carry notes that say, soon the earth will get well. So, I don't know. Like, I feel like humanity has like this history of just doing absolutely stupid shit to the planet, right? Like atomic tests, like actual atomic attacks on people, and we don't really think of how that kind of just like leaves scars, if that makes sense. So I don't know, like, and I just feel like I don't feel like this is actually the case, and of course people can disagree with me if they want, but I just feel like there's just huge denial of what is being done to the planet and the effect that it has on it as well. Oh, Ari says, I was hoping that you would do some poem a day for your poetry channel while we're stuck inside. Actually, it's interesting that you bring that up, my friend, because I have had an idea of, one, doing that, but two, I also kind of had this idea of doing dramatic readings of my really old angsty poems angstier poems, I should say. And yes, believe it or not, these poems were far more angsty in the past. Um, just for fun, so I'm probably going to do that. If you've not checked out my poetry channel, I have the hiccups. I apologize. My poetry channel is called Donnie Speaks. So if you go to my main YouTube, which is Donnie Winter, and you look over on the side, you'll be able to see links to my other YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, I'm going to be doing some stuff on there too. So Megan says that Gil wants a shirt to match my Godzilla shirt. One of many of my Godzilla shirts. So I'll have to see if I can find Gil one. I'm sure there are more of these out there, or at least maybe another type of Godzilla shirt, of course. Like, honestly, I'm an overgrown child. I'll, like, probably... Here is how my wardrobe is divided up. About 1/3 of my wardrobe is dress clothing. Another third is Godzilla stuff. And then another third consists of, like, Banda t-shirts. So really, I'm still in high school, I guess. Oh well. I feel very shameless about that. I'm proud to admit it. Let's see. Any other poems? Now that I'm kind of on a roll, I'm gonna do 2 more. I swear, just 2 more, my friends. Let's see. I am going to read a poem called Satellites. This poem is kind of pedantic, but I kind of think of it pedantic in a tasteful way, if that is at all possible. But I wrote this poem, and I think I mentioned it on my, because I did a version of it on my Donnie Speaks channel, but this poem is kind of my reaction to looking into a petunia. I got these petunias last year and planted them, and they were like these, I think they were called cosmic petunias. So, like, they were purple, but they had, like, white specks in them, and they kind of looked like galaxies. So I decided to write a poem about that, because I just had this moment looking at these petunias, and I was just like, I feel connected to the universe. To the universe right now. I know it sounds super duper dramatic, but I think poetry is fun when it's dramatic from time to time. Okay, satellites. We never see the forces that coax us along orbits, paths we pretend are elliptical but are actually shapes that have no name. The structured frustrations we grow comfortable with batter our surfaces with gamma rays, burst that bubble anger between our cerebral hemispheres with tectonic intent, slow, plotting a convection of distraction that ebbs away from the shadow places kept inside. We lay down roots but keep ourselves shallow, play hide and seek with a thought of never stopping. Our sights stay in tunnel vision wormholes, sculpted in place by the electromagnetic expectations of others. But in the oddest, unpredictable moments, despite all these artificial forces I pretend are real, I stop to stare at the milky spiral overhead, a pathway I never thought was there until I actually looked. Sometimes the satellites we see are mirrors, refractory scopes that paint our interiors across the infinite. Interestingly, that poem right now, like, I mean, the first part of it had a lot to do with, like, how we're always hustly and bustly, but now that we're very much sedentary, I'm looking back at it and being like, I miss that hullabaloo that made me want to slow things down just a little bit. But yeah, that one was Satellites. So the last poem that I'm going to read for you this evening is another one of my favorite pieces by Tess Gallagher. who I had the honor of meeting this past fall. She's a phenomenal human being. And this is another nature themed poem, and it's just kind of like this wistful poem that's really serene. And I just wanted to leave everything off on this. All right. It's called Cloud Path. With steps freshened by wearing a man's cast-off shoes, I follow the rain-rutted road as far as the fishing boats turned upside down on the soggy bank, their oars secured elsewhere to provide against thieves. Mottled light through waterside trees over the bows and sterns means trading fish for birds. I take up the invisible oars put by for just this occasion, a banishing scald of sun blotted inexactly by the succession of wind-blown clouds able to lift the entire flotilla. A bird flies through me, then a fish. Anyway, so yeah, those are some poems for you. I hope that you enjoyed some of them. For those of you who are just turning in, I super duper apologize. I'm at the end of this, so once I post it, you're more than welcome to go back and rewatch it. But I guess what I want to finish this with is, now that you have more time, and I hope that you have more time if you are especially working remotely, or maybe you can't work right now, try to find time to be creative, because I think this event is, I mean, of course it's unprecedented, but I think that we should be documenting ourselves in whatever way we can, because in the future, when we look back on this, I think it's going to be important to look back at where we were and what we had to get through and how we survived it. So, be creative. If you are not the creative type, if you don't really have many hobbies, maybe try something new that you've never tried before. It could be something as simple as journaling. It could be writing poems. It could be creating art. It could be music. It could be a whole variety of different things. Anyway, I love you, and I hope you have a wonderful night. And thank you all for tuning in. I super duper appreciate it. Bye.